Boeing and Airbus. You know what they are. They're top two major manufacturers of airplanes for airlines. Today, I want to talk about these two similar looking but quite different airplanes as a user. Hello, I'm Captain JK. This is kind of a comparison of Boeing and Airbus from an airline pilot's perspective. Let me start with a quick look around both companies. Boeing. This company was founded in 1916 in Seattle, USA by the founder William Boeing. Its headquarters has moved to Chicago since they incorporated McDonnell Douglas Company in 1997. Let me introduce the planes ever produced in this company so far. 707, 717, 727, 737, 747, 757, 767, 777, 787. Airbus. This is the second largest aircraft manufacturer in the world now. In 1969, lots of countries in Europe, especially France, Germany, and Spain, united to compete with the US aircraft maker Boeing. They have grown exponentially since Korean Air ordered 36 A300 in 1974. Okay, now check out how many kinds of buses they have made so far. A300 series, A320 series, A330, A340, A350, A380, A220. It is said that Boeing is conservative, as opposed to Airbus being progressive. I flew MD-80, which is almost like Boeing aircraft, for 2 years, Boeing 737 for 3 years, and I've been flying Boeing 787 since 2020. So, I am like a Boeing man, aren't I? But I've spent almost 16 years in Airbus A330, 9 years as a first officer, and 7 years as a captain. So, I think I deserve telling how they compare. People say that Boeing has been trying to add computers on the airplanes to help pilots. On the other hand, Airbus puts wings on the computers. What that means is the way how Airbus guys design the airplane is focused on reducing pilots' intervention. But conservative guys, Boeing, intentionally leave quite a lot of rooms for pilots' intervention. Sometimes even with manual mode in an Airbus, when pilots make mistakes, onboard flight computers would take over to stay safe. To put it in perspective, it's like driving in a Tesla versus in a Porsche. Challenger wanted to look different than Champion. I totally agree that Airbus has been much more progressive than Boeing. In some point of view, they might have to do that intentionally. It seemed that Airbus has tried to make everything in the airplane to look different from Boeing. It's like all the terms are different except for engines, APU, or landing gears, which can never be called differently. Even small things like names of the system units, instrument colors. For example, EEC, Electronic Engine Control. This is one of the core systems of modern airliners. But Airbus didn't want to call it like that. FADAC, Full Authority Digital Engine Control. And as you can see the main instrument panel of Boeing ones, two bars with a purple-ish color in the center are called the flight director. These bars are very important to pilots since they are guiding pilots to fly correctly. But Airbus guys wanted them to look green instead of Boeing color, magenta. Names and this kind of color differences are minor ones. Take a look at the toggle switches. Did you notice anything weird? Yes, on and off positions are opposite. Toggling up is on in Airbus, whereas it's off in Boeing. How weird. Control yoke versus side stick. I think this is the major difference between two manufacturers. Since around 1994, from Airbus A330, all the Airbus planes have side stick instead of control yoke. And this side stick gives pilots incredibly stable controllability. Pilots can control the airplane with relatively small amount of input through this side stick. They don't even provide something like feedback force whatsoever on the side stick. It's just like a joystick for PC games. Have you heard about trim switches? When pilots are flying manually, they sometimes feel the resistance on the yoke. The trim switch is to release that pressure on the yoke. There's only autopilot disconnect button on top of it, because Airbus uses full automatic trimming, while Boeing uses kind of semi-auto trimming. But this side stick system has critical downside. When both pilots are trying to control the airplane at the same time for some reasons, it is really hard to notice what the other pilot is doing with a side stick. Do you remember Air France 447 crashed into Atlantic Ocean in 2009? One of the pilots mistakenly controlled the Airbus A330, so they ended up in stall condition. At the moment, the pilot next to him didn't notice what the other pilot is doing with his side stick. Lots of pilots say that it might have been okay if the plane at the moment had been Boeing ones. Today's airplanes in both companies use fly-by-wire system instead of fly-by-cable, which means electrically controlled by pilots, and then control surface move accordingly with a hydraulic system. But Boeing tries to leave the control feeling as it used to be, like in a classical plane. They must have reasons to introduce less automatic to the airplanes. Other convenience. Okay, when it comes to pilot's convenience, I guess Boeing is no match for Airbus. Tray table. Having a table in the cockpit makes huge difference to pilots. They can eat meals like in a restaurant. They can put iPad on it to check some documents. When it's folded in, pilots can even cross their legs, just like this. Imagine how inconvenient it would be to have a big control column between your legs for like 10 hours. Sun visor. As some of you might have seen, electrically dimmed side window of Boeing 787 cabin. I was really impressed when I first saw it in person.
And I was shocked.
Boeing, would that be your best? Switches. This is the most important and frequently used by pilots. Boeing called this MCP, Mode Control Panel, whereas Airbus guys named it FCU, Flight Control Unit. Though their names are different, its function is almost identical. Let's focus on the numbers of the switches. As you see this, 27 versus 13. It's almost double. Even considering Boeing 787 has additional function keys, we can see how differently these two manufacturers are focused on the airplanes. Parking brakes. Just like cars, every aircraft has parking brakes. But the way to set it is quite different. Boeing takes the classical way of doing it, just like a Cessna. First, press the pedal brakes and then set the parking brake lever to on. Then, now pilots can release their feet from the brake pedals. Okay, this time take a look at the way of Airbus. Rotate the parking brake lever to on. That's it. Flaps. This is a device attached to the main wings which allows the airplanes to fly slow for takeoffs and landings. As you can see here, Boeing aircraft has 10 positions, whereas Airbus has only 5. Double again. In reality, more than 99%, just 1 or 2 positions are used for takeoff. And again, pilots use flaps to slow down for landing with several steps. Just as taking off, in most cases, only 4 positions of flaps are used. Which one's better from pilot's perspective? I, as an airline pilot, respect both ways of making airplanes of these 2 manufacturers. All the planes have pros and cons. I mean, good things and bad things, whatever it is. And actually, some pilots prefer to be in Boeing aircraft, and some prefer to be in Airbus. Me? Well, it's a bit hard to choose, but if I really have to, I would choose Airbus by 6-4. Okay, thanks for watching and see you in my next video. Bye bye.